Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This week's show is about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Scavengers Reign, Season 1, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with Sam and Ursula's situation. They had a really interesting story in so many regards. Like, obviously, we get that story from Sam, where he talks about a friend of his. So, this also kind of explores a little bit more of the questions I had previously, because there's the conversations I had last episode about this being very, like, lost in space, or at the very least very it's probably not even lost in space or even Star Ocean, because once again those are space exploration because you kind of have no choice. It does seem like probably everything on Earth seems fine, but it might just be a thing of just in this world they're exploring space. I mean, just like we are in real life, right? So maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's not a situation that Earth is dying, because we get a little flashback with Cayman and Fiona. And it looks like everything's fine, but he's like, oh, why would we even stay here? Once again, that's assuming that's Earth and not just some... But it doesn't seem like they've made home on any other planet, so I'm assuming that's Earth. It's like, but what's left for us here? Like, nothing's like, it's a boring human existence, but out there's so much adventure. So it does seem like everything's fine. This is just purely about exploring space and finding out what else is out there and, what's inhabited, what's not, and just what that means. But getting back to Sam and Ursula, he had told this story about, like, him and a buddy of his went on a moon base. And it was like a moon station to kind of gas back up, and they ended up like leaving, and once they came back they found the skull to some kind of creature. They're not sure where it came from or why it's there, but it's there, and his friend interpreted it as a bad sign, specifically an omen for him. And you had Sam being like a year to that day, the exact day he ended up dying unexpectedly. And I thought at first, I was like, you don't think it's something crazy like Sam put it there just to kind of mess with him? But because at first I thought that's what Sam was going to say when Ursula, do you know where the skull came from? He was kind of quiet for a few seconds, then he looked around, he was like, no, I had no idea. I was like, are you messing with him or something? But for him, it was a whole conversation of like something that just some random thing, he attributed so much to it that it's like something that he put his own meaning and connection to, but it's like it was most likely something insignificant. But at the end of the day, it became so real to him that it's almost like a thing that it's almost manifest destiny. If like you believe in something so much, like you are going to manifest it in some psychological way or something like that, right? So he kind of attributes it to being like, right, this kind of crazy. I can never attribute something like that so much to almost like destiny and stuff, because for him, it's like, it feels like it takes away free will. Ursula's perspective is really interesting because she's coming from it from this viewpoint of, well, I mean, that's what we try and do in life. We all try to understand like the unexplainable. We try to attribute things to it because it's easier for us to process it that way, And it's like, maybe things wouldn't have turned out that way if he hadn't attributed so much of like, oh yeah, this skull, like, cause for that year, what was he doing? Rummaging through his head. Oh, it's a bad sign. Like bad things are going to happen in my life. And it's like, maybe it wouldn't have happened if he hadn't attributed it all to that skull being a bad omen, or maybe it always was going to happen. You'll never know. Like life is unpredictable like that. It's just, so like I said, maybe he put more bad juju in the world, I can like, I consider myself slightly superstitious. I mean, I don't believe, I'm kind of, you put negative energy out there, the universe is going to respond type of situation. And it's like, I don't know if like I said, I'm fully invested into it, but I'm open to the thought, just like the supernatural and all that. Like I'm open to the thoughts of it. I don't let it consume my life. But when it pops up in conversation, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I think that'd be fascinating. But I kind of think the thought of like energy, like, you put it out there, it can come back to you. So maybe it happened to Sam's friend. So I just thought that was so interesting, especially when you had the Ursula situation where when they were going through that wall, I thought everyone was going to end up having to tackle that wall, but it doesn't seem like it. But I think the point of it is, I mean, because last episode, everyone was dealing with the storm in their respective situations. This episode, I thought everyone was going to be dealing with the wall, but only Ursula and Sam really dealt with the wall. But it's a metaphorical wall that everyone kind of had to find their way over. We'll get to that. But like I said, saying in the same vein of like Sam's like, not wanting to attribute like things or read too much into things, we have Ursula while they were traveling through the walls, which is so interesting. Those bird creatures, I guess, like part of their, I don't know if it's a feather or what it is, but some part of them like resonates with the bone, like the walls, and acts as kind of like this signal that lets you go like, okay, open up so I can get through. That's how they get through with no problem. But during the travel, Ursula got distracted by something, and it was this beautiful like flower that opened up, and it was like this whole process that it's like, okay, like all the seeds get pulled up from it, a little alien dude gets born. I was like, okay, and then he kind of starts the cycle of like, okay, taking one of those orbs, squishing it, and there's like a little thing inside. He puts it on, and it activates the flower. It's part of its, I think, process, and then the creature withers and dies pretty quickly, but then the plant kind of buries it underneath it, and it's once again that cycle of life and death. I mean, they tackled it this episode because you had one of those bird creatures dies. Like, I think maybe it's not the same bird creature, but because I was thinking it's kind of almost like those ostrich looking things that makes its way through the wall, but it looked like it was just like a small bird, fell out of the sky, died, bones and mushrooms grow from it. But like I said, it did seem like it was a smaller version of those ostriches, but this worm creature eats those for substance, and then you have that other creature, the ostrich looking thing, come and eat it. So, because specifically they track the things, those the fruit that those things eat that comes from those dead birds, from like the mushrooms and stuff. It eats those, and it gives off a very distinct smell, and that's how those ostrich-like birds are able to find them and track them and eat them. So once again, that full circle. I mean, I think that's because I talked about that last episode too. Just like the circle of life in this show is so interesting, because it's like, well, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, we know it. Yeah, scientifically we know it just because we learn about it, but to witness it is so fascinating, and get to see it personified in this animated style too. On an alien planet. But that's what, like, Ursula was so captivated by this cycle, because she was almost like it was communicating with me, but she's like, it was hard to explain. But Sam was like, what are you, stupid? Like, don't get separated. We need to like go check on the ship, make sure we can wake up the rest of the crew. Like, that's what he's focused on. But Ursula, because we don't know fully what everyone's thing is on the crew. Like, Sam might be kind of like almost like a because Ursula might come from the like scientific point of view, where she's just kind of like, oh, I'm here to like study stuff and understand stuff. Sam's not like, I have my mission. He's by the books, like, oh, focus on the mission. That's all that matters. Like, not saying he's a soldier, but maybe there's a little something applicable there. But you have Ursula, like I said, getting so captivated by the science, and Sam was kind of upset because it's like, you getting separated, like on a planet that could easily kill us, is stupid. He's like, at the end of the day, he's like, hey, because she's like, right, if you saw what I saw, you'd understand. He's like, okay, listen, Ursula, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I'm not trying to be a douchebag. The fact of the matter is, we need to stick together because I need you. That's the only way we're going to get through this. And she's like, well, I don't need you, which I was like, whoa, Ursula, where the hell is that coming from? And he's like, okay. She's like, no, I didn't mean that. It's like, you said it, so you did mean it on some level. But I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like, I mean, y'all seem like you had a decent enough relationship. Like, to me, that just seems so out of pocket. But I guess it's like, I guess to be fair, she's the one that helped resolve that situation they were in last episode, those insects. She is the one that killed it. I mean, but it's like, for her, it's like, I'm the one that figured stuff out. Like, I'm the one that, you're kind of like the muscle, but I'm kind of the brains. I'm the one that understands it. So you need me more than I need you. Which, once again, is kind of fucked up. Like, no, we're all in this together. And Sam's like, oh, okay. And she's like, no. He's like, no, it's fine, whatever. Sadly, he ends up tripping on one of those fruits, so he gets covered in that stench. And because he gets covered in that stench, one of those ostrich bird things comes and snatches him up because he smells like food. So now Ursula kind of put up or shut up type of situation. It's like, you made that statement. I mean, I think that's also supposed to be that thing too of, you put that energy out there in the universe is going to respond. Like, it feels like it was meant to be that. Like, she just made this statement of, I don't need you to survive. Now it's like, oh, he suddenly gets snatched up and it's up to you to save him. So it's time to, put what you said to the test type of thing. It feels like that was what that's meant to be. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see how that situation plays out. Then we have the whole Ozzy and Levi situation, which, once again, Levi being so in tune with everything that it's interacting with these like bugs and ends up helping one. And it even kind of communicates with it because its lights from its like this sensor on its face activates with the bug, and the bug like starts like there's lights off of its wings. It's actually really beautiful looking. And then Ozzy gives it like a little piece of like fruit or whatever and puts it back to kind of go along with all the other like ant-like bugs. And Levi told Ozzy what it was doing, and just Ozzy's just so dumbfounded. And we get this little flashback where Ozzy's talking to Fiona, because I guess that's supposed to be like going back. We'll talk about when we get to Cayman's side of things, but he convinced Fiona to take the job. It's like, right, we could be working together and it'd be a mechanical department that you can work on. But it's like, oh yeah, this thing was working out there in the fields or whatever, and then it just like stopped and shut down while it was doing some manual labor. So what's going on? And it's like, well, if there's any issues, bring it back. And it's like I said, it seems like I would assume it's the same model she's always had. Like that same Levi model is this one. So it's like, there, like something's going on there. Once again, still unclear whether it's because of the stuff on its circuitry that's making it have like grow and change, or whether this is just some defect in this one in particular. I mean, a defect could end up being something beautiful that has created this independent life that isn't just its manual labor thing that it can think and feel for its own. Like isn't just there to look after Ozzy. I mean, I think it's meant to be even more that direct parallel of like where it's like Sam and Ursula. There's that conversation once again about needing each other, where it's like Ozzy's kind of like, I need you to help me survive this, Levi. So, but yeah, they're making their trek, obviously trying to make it to the Demeter, just like Ozzy and Sam and Ursula. But they end up running into this, like, because there was like some seismic activity they were picking up, but it wasn't an earthquake. Turns out it's like a stampede of these creatures, which seeing them made me feel like, oh, like, especially with Ozzy trying to get out of the way and eventually still kind of getting caught up in a way. I was like, oh, feels very Lion King-ish. That's immediately where my mind went. And what I thought was so interesting, though, it's like, obviously these things are kind of responding to each other. Of us kind of like, you see this ripple across the wave of them of like, they kind of bulge up almost like a frog. They have these like sacs on them that bulge up, but you see like it triples off the like, they're all in this specific formation, and it like comes across a wave as they do it. And Ozzy's like, oh my God, if we keep this up, we're going to be smashed up. But then Levi is like, right, follow their lead. Because I think in that moment, Levi registered that like a sonic sound and picked up on it and kind of registered it. So it's like, right, it's a specific pattern. So go along with their way. And so Ozzy lets go. Because I think it's almost supposed to be poignant where it's like Ozzy's tried to take, maybe this is indicative of Ozzy as a character, tries to take too much control, and it's supposed to be a thing of you kind of got to let go a little bit, like take your heads off the reins and go with the wave. Like Ozzy's not too much of a go with the flow type of person, and it feels like Levi, interesting, the machine is very go with the flow, so maybe that's what that's supposed to be indicative of. But I thought it was so interesting, like she just kind of lets go and just kind of coast along with them. And it's kind of like, wait, like, what am I supposed to do? And it's like, Levi's like, no, just keep following, keep going with the flow. And they end up managing to go through what is kind of, I guess, like a hub for them, because the moment they went out the other side, none of the other creatures followed them. So they must have all been stampeding there. And then maybe they stopped, or maybe they went different pathways, but they end up outside of all of it. And so it all worked out. So just thought that was kind of an interesting little section, and I'm curious to see what that means in the long run. Like I said, it just feels like it is that Ozzy learning to kind of let go a little bit, maybe. But also, like, once again, Levi's kind of connection with everything. Like, it's resonating with the habitants, the creatures on this planet, and that circle of life here, and kind of finding their own flow in things and kind of bringing Ozzy along. And I think that's just going to make Ozzy go more and more of like, yeah, you're helpful, but something's off with you. Once again, you're acting weird. You're not acting like you're supposed to, like out of any of the other models of Levi's, like there's something going on here. So it's going to be interesting to see where that side of things go. And then finally we had the whole situation with Cayman. I was still unclear why that creature took Cayman, and it's like, I was like, if the thing tried to feed off of him, was like, when the last time he ate? But then I think last episode I talked about it, I was like, oh, the thing is taking care of him. It putting that stuff in his mouth, it is feeding him, it's keeping him alive. It's, maybe it eats stuff and then it kind of like baby birds it in his mouth. I did maybe not directly like, oh, I'm feeding you the stuff I ate that I just ground up, or whether it's like I broke it down and here's some nutrients to keep you alive. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it's not something you actually physically eat. Maybe it's like it looks like that, but maybe all that is, it's like a physical representation, a sack of just pure nutrients. Maybe that's all it is. But the thing keeps him alive because, as we saw in the first episode, what does it do? It mind controls something to feed itself. It's like, oh, you feed this creature, but this creature is also feeding you. So that's what it's doing. It sees Cayman as like, oh, you're a big enough thing that it's like, I'm going to keep you alive because you could prove useful to me. It's our cycle of like, I manipulate things to get me food. And so I'm going to keep you alive so that you keep me alive. Cayman was supposed to get some fruit, but he couldn't do it because another creature came up and he fell out the tree. Luckily, the creature caught him, but I love that it didn't bring him down completely gently. It stuck him a little bit in the air and then dropped him because it's like, yeah, you're fucking up, dude. Oh, well, I guess neither one of us is eating. But it came in thinking about... Once again, the guy has like a chip on his shoulder because not only did we get the Fiona flashback, but we also got him talking to Ozzy because Ozzy was like, yeah, there's a thing we have that's kind of an issue. We're leaking coolant. It's like 13, we lost maybe 13% or something like that because it's like the batteries to these machines needs to be a certain temperature to kind of keep them good. Which I'm curious, is that supposed to be like something related to Levi, or is it specifically the battery similar to what Sam and Ursula got in episode 1? I wonder, is that the battery that she was referencing? But it's like, yeah, they need to be kept at a specific, like a very sub-zero temperature. And it's like, if we don't, like, they'll kind of go bad. And you have, like, came in being like, fine, I'll do it. Yes, I'll handle it. Because Ozzy's like, should we tell anyone? So I'm curious if maybe he kind of like, he was like, fine, I'll do it. And maybe he didn't quite do what he was supposed to, or he didn't fix the problem and that led to their issues. Maybe, I have no idea. But the whole situation, like you can tell, like present day, he's slamming the ground because I think it pissed him off, like either thinking and realizing like this is partially on me, it's my fault, or because I wondered, did things not go well between him and Fiona now that they were working together? Or maybe she decided like, hey, it was fun for a while, but then maybe she decided, because she didn't want to leave. She was like, my life is here. But he's like, no, come on. And he even said like, hey, you said we're in a rut. So once again, it is that conversation where it feels like, and I'm attributing a lot to this, but I'm wondering if it's like, he thought like, oh, we're having so many relationship issues. Let's do this. It'll get us out of our rut. It's not the same thing as I've been talking about recently in a different show where I was talking about like, oh, being married or having a kid, getting married or having a kid, kind of, people using that as a solve their problems type of thing. Like maybe he was trying to get away, but maybe it's like, it has more to do with him than it does Fiona. It's something on his side, and like I said, maybe they ended up breaking up or getting into art. He was in such a bad mood, and they were together at the woods. He was in a bad mood. He went off on the boat. Like we also see like what happens when he might just be naturally an angry person. Which, when that's coming from one angry person to potentially another. It's like there's something on the inside, and he's lashing out, and he's angry on the outside because of it. Like I don't know. Like I just assume the reason why he was so pissy when Ozzy was asking him about the coolant and stuff, I'm assuming that's supposed to be like maybe something happened between him and Fiona. Like I said, either they broke up and maybe she went back home, and so he's working this job alone. It's just like, right, you got this job. You hope that this would be kind of a fresh start for you and Fiona, and it ended up being maybe the end of your relationship. Who knows? That's, like I said, just guessing on that front. But then when he snapped back to it, went on a killing spree. He started killing the creatures. Not only did he get some fruit, but he's also killing like some of the other creatures that inhabit that area and feeding them to the monster, the creature. And the moment it's eating, it's then feeding him and putting him in a trance. And while he's thinking about Fiona and how they kind of got where they were, about like, oh, taking this job, he got it. And he was like, oh, you can join the mechanics department. He's kind of in his haze, and we just cut back to him just like in a mindless trance, smashing and killing a creature, where it's just like, I think this creature has you like, I think he's in a trance thinking about the past, but this creature also picks someone who probably has so much deep-seated anger buried underneath that it's coming out in homicidal rage in some regards. I mean, like, he was kind of a little too I mean, I guess it's like, it was his way of saying fuck you to this planet. Of like, yeah, killed you bastard. You want to take food from me? You're almost like laughing in my face. And it's like, well, he's lashing out against him. Once again, like, everyone's looking for a little bit of control when so much control has been taken from them in some way. So I think Cayman just wants to drown in the ecstasy. Like, it's almost like someone getting high where it's like they want to just stay high all the time. I think he wants to stay high in regard to, he wants to be trapped in the memories of being with Fiona. He wants that lie, that ecstasy, to kind of forget his circumstances. So all that he is on the inside is bubbling to the surface of just, okay, my instinct is like to protect this thing and feed it. So he ends up killing another of its like a bigger, maybe I'm not mistaken, but I could swear that's just a bigger version. I mean, I think it's almost supposed to be this full circle thing of that creature got its food taken in episode 1 because the bigger creature outshined it. And now it's like, oh, Cayman in his trance ended up killing this creature, and now you get to feed on it, which very cannibalistic. And I'm like, I don't know what that means in the long run, but that feels so like that scenario, that storyline feels like that could definitely go a scary place. It kind of already has, but we'll have to wait to kind of see where things kind of go. Like I said, I could be attributing so much more to a lot of these storylines, but that one in particular than, what's really meant to be there. But because they keep it vague enough, and it feels like a lot of that is potentially up to your interpretation, at least until we get further in the show. Okay, so I looked it up because I was curious like what the release was going to be. So it seems like every week is going to be a 3-episode release chunk. So it's going to be 4 weeks of 3 episodes, which is interesting. Because I was curious, like, are we supposed to almost treat each of these episodes like an arc? Because it also feels like, and like I said, this is just based on we've gotten so far, and I thought this in like episode 2, but I am curious to see, will it not be until the 12th episode that they're fully all together, or will they eventually meet up? I also didn't talk about it. We did get that opening where we did check on the Demeter, and we see that a lot of people are still alive except for one person. It looked like I don't know if it was from a crash landing or not, but it does seem like one of the people in those pods, like I said, I'm assuming it's like a cryo chamber, is dead. Because all the other ones were green, this one was red. It also looked like the glass was cracked and you can see blood. So I don't know if something pierced through it, or whether it's like during the crash the person hit their head and died. So granted, we have no idea. Once again, there's already creatures inside the Demeter. Nothing probably like extremely high on the apex predator level side of things. But it's like, yeah, we need to get there sooner than later and wake people up, because the really depressing element could be like, in the moment you get there, a lot of, if not everyone, is dead. So we'll ultimately have to wait to see where the next episodes take us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.